feared like the plague he was by those beneath.
All right, so we're in ninth lit. We just have a few minutes here. We're reading the end of the prologue. We pointed out that he is feared by others. He's thin, which for a wealthy man is unusual. Says that he kept his bins and garners trim. No auditor could gain a point on him. He could judge by watching the drought and rain, the yield which might expect from seed and grain. He talks about sheep and hens. So that's his job. He takes care of all of that, manages it, and he's really good at it. But he is feared, if that's a negative. It says he's choleric in the first line. We're going to learn that word. It's one of our vocabulary later when we start that. Choleric means irritable. So if you're choleric, you're easily irritated. People, and that's probably one reason people are afraid of him. Again, please write this down. I see some of you staring off into the distance, and I'm wasting my time if that's the case. He's choleric, thin, he does well. One interesting thing about him, he works for a man, right? He doesn't own the estate. And notice what it says. He had a treasure well tucked away, yet it came out to pleasure his Lord with subtle loans or gifts of goods.
So it sounds like that Beowulf treasure thing, where he's not interested in
that's a good point.
It to himself, but using it for his advantage.
That's a good point. He is the employee loaning money to the employer. So in other words, you work for a guy and you loan him money. So that's kind of an odd point. He's really good at it. Yes, except for being irritable and feared. Man, you'd kind of like to have this guy working for, it says that he's never in debt. It says all of these things, the pigs, horses, dairy, stores, were wholly trusted to his government. It sounds like Joseph in the Old Testament. Remember him? Every time he went to the prison warden gave every control to him. He went to Potiphar completely trusted in him. He went to Pharaoh completely trusted. This guy's really good and trustworthy. Even borrows, again, loans the boss money. Yeah.
Does it specifically say anything about his relationship with God? Because
Nope.
It's really odd for Chaucer not to.
Well, this is he's one of the laity. He doesn't even mention church at all. So he's very, very worldly, very secular, not religious. That's a really good point. Like we said yesterday, it's important to see what someone doesn't talk about. When you would think, why didn't he mention this? Which he didn't. Thank you. Anybody want to help Huck do this? Huck's volunteered to read. Okay, we'll go to John Carter and back to Huck. You're going to read about the summoner. The summoner delivers summons. What's a summons? It's an order to come to court. If you ever do jury duty once you get old, you will be summoned by a letter to court. You can't not show up. You got to show up. If you're a witness in a trial, you'll be summoned by letter to come to the trial. You can't just not show up. You got to be there. If you are charged with something, they will deliver more likely personally to you, and you got to show up. Don't ever ignore a summons from the city or the county courts because that's you're perfectly innocent, but you're not anymore if you ignore it. You just can't show up. Yes, sir.
What if you already have plans when they've written to you for jury?
Well, you can tell them that, and they might let you off, but you just can't ignore it.
Right.
Don't ever ignore one of those things. Yeah.
So my dad's a lawyer and everything. He was saying if you know someone's a really frustrating lawyer and you're called to jury duty, you can get out of it or whatever. I don't understand that
because you have personal bias.
Yeah.
But when they select jurors, first of all, there's this huge pool of people. There are 100 people, 75 people, 40 people, I don't know what it is. And they take the first 12. And if, they might like all 12. And so everybody else sits back down and waits for the next trial, because usually there's more than one going on. And if they find out that they got the two juries ready, you can go home at 12 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever. But they take them one at a time, and you have a number arbitrarily given to you. And so you go in there, and they invite you up, first 12, first, well, you're not sitting in that order, but they select the first 12 arbitrarily, randomly, and they question you. And most of the time, they like school teachers. They think we're fair. I've been on 2 juries. One time there was a lawyer as a juror, and of course they didn't want him.
Or Mr. Willoughby has been chosen like
5 times.
I know, they like
so
teachers. I'll have to talk to him about that. I didn't know, in
Isn't
fact, he met his wife that way.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you met his
Yeah,
wife on jury duty.
yeah,
Isn't there like a limit to how many times you have to do it? Like, can't you just say eventually?
Well, I'm pushing 70, and I think after 65, and I haven't been called in several years, I can just simply, but I can't just not show up, but they would let me not show up if I did. I mean, I have to tell them, and they would probably, just because of my age. So anyway, it's really a good experience. We had a college student one time on the jury. Yeah, they pick the juror that they think will vote their way, and so you know, and if you're like your teacher, they really like teachers. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I know with like the George Floyd case, they had spent a lot of
Oh
time
yeah.
on it.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah,
because
a
they're
murder
trying to find-
case.
Yeah. They're
Um,
trying to find so many unbiased on both sides.
I don't know how that's possible.
Which is so hard, cause
Yeah,
everyone
because
has an
everybody
opinion.
had an opinion on that one,
Um,
so.
Sometimes it's just hard to find unbiased people.
Well, and you know, bias means, that doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means that you've heard about the case, and you know, we do kind of make those judgments, not knowing that we're going to be on the jury, and all of a sudden now we've been called to jury duty, and so they have to adjust their expectations that way. Let's do this one quickly. We may get through this.
There was a summoner with us at that inn, his face on fire like a cherubim, for he had carbuncles. His eyes were narrow, he was a hot and lecherous as a sparrow. Black scabby brown brows he had, and a thin beard. Children were afraid when he appeared. No quicksilver, lead ointment, tartar creams, no brimstone, no boracic, so it seems, could make a salve that had the power to bite, clean up or cure his whelks of knobby whites, or purge the pimples sitting on his cheeks. Garlic he loved, and onions too, and leeks, and drinking strong red wine till all was hazy. Then he would shout and jabber as if he was crazy. He wouldn't speak a word except in Latin. When he was drunk, such tags as he was padded. He only had a few, say 2 or 3, that he had mugged up out of some degree. No wonder, for he had heard them every day, and as you know, a man can teach a jay to call out Walter better than the Pope. But had you tried to test his wits and grope for more, you'd have found nothing in the bag. Then Quiesto quid juris was his tag. He was a noble, varlet, and kind one. You'd meet none better if you went to find one. Why, he'd allow just for a quart of wine, or any good lad to keep a concubine, a 12 a month, and dispense them all together, and he had finches of his own to feather. And if he found some rascal with a maid, he would instruct him not to be afraid. In such a case as our archdeacon's curse, unless the rascal's soul was in his purse. For in his purse the punishment would be, purse is the good archdeacon's house, said he. But well I know he lied in what he said, a curse should be a guilty man in dread. For curses kill, a shriving brings salvation. We should beware of excommunication. Thus as he pleased, a man could bring duress on and any fellow in the
Diocese.
He knew their secrets, they did what he said. He wore a garland set upon his head, large as the holy bush upon a stake. Outside an alehouse he had a cake, a round one, which it was his joke to wield, as if it were tinted for a shield.
All right. We just have a couple of minutes. You see anything?
One thing that popped out to me is like, Quiesto quid juris, the question is, what is a point in law? That Latin phrase, cause Latin is kind of empty. He seems weird, I don't know.
Well, it sounds to me like he uses Latin to make himself look good. He'll throw out a Latin phrase here and there. They calls them tags. And it also says he's lecherous. Lecherous is it's sexually immoral. You notice his complexion. we can't tell bad people from good people by looking at them in reality, but in literature, that's
But
not
it's-
true.
It's making a strong point
Yes.
that he's like an ugly, but also
Inside.
like, yeah, and scary person
Yes,
to like, look
right.
like children fear him.
Yes, yes. So, just note that, just a couple of things, he doesn't smell very good. Listen, he likes to drink wine and beer.
And eat onions, leeks,
Onions,
and garlic.
yeah, so his breath is not great, he gets drunk, and just understand that he cheats people because he knows the people that are in trouble and he bribes them, so he gets bribes, and he lies, and he has his own girlfriends that he keeps, so he is, also remember, he is a man of the church. Not a pastor or anything, but he works for the church. That would be the summary. All right, so keep working on your book. Keep working on the memorization. We will finish this on Monday, and we won't spend as much time with the prologue next week, so we can get this done. Have a great weekend. Thank you.